What a great introduction. Really sets us up to disappoint. But it's awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us. We're actually talking about setting downtimes on related hosts and services, and then when we talked about presenting this here, we figured this sort of sounds like service dependencies, so let's go with that. But it's called automated downtimes, and we're setting them in an active check, so that's what we're presenting here. It's not a use case, it's just really an extension that we've published on, I think, 2 days ago, and we're here to explain how it came to be and how you can use it. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the history, how it got to be, how we're currently able to use it, how the dependency detection works, what some of the challenges were, and how you can use it and how you can get your hands on it. First, a little about us. I didn't come here alone. I didn't write this thing, so I brought someone with me.
So, hello, I'm Michael Höss. I work at Systemvertrieb Alexander GmbH for now 3.5 years. And usually when I'm not work with tech, I just play with it.
Yeah, my name is Gerd Stolz. I've been here I've been here before, doing Checkmk since 1.2.4, and just going to do a quick introduction for SVA. We're the largest owner-operated systems integrator in Germany. We've been steadily growing over the last 25 years. I think we're also always still hiring. So the hiring freeze officially has been going on as a running joke for 20 years, and this time we've hired 3,000 people. So if anyone knows anyone that's still looking for a Checkmk job, hit us up. How did we manage, or how did we start thinking about this whole thing? So the original story was, we had a customer with a lot of ESXi hosts, and the customer had this use case that he said, when I update an ESXi host, I usually set it into maintenance mode, and then very quickly afterwards, Checkmk is going to send me a notification saying, this host is in maintenance, and I don't need this notification because I was the one who set it into maintenance. It was a manual task. And he said, why can't Checkmk just set this host into downtime? And our colleague Daniel, talked to the customer and was like, it's a valid question. Why can't we do something about it? And then he built the first draft of it, I think it was a few years ago, where he said, okay, I'm just going to build an active check. And this active check is going to monitor the state of this maintenance mode service. And if it says that the host is in maintenance, it's going to set the ESXi host into maintenance. And once that down maintenance mode in ESXi has been deactivated manually, because the upgrade is done, hardware maintenance is done, whatever, then the downtime is also removed within Checkmk, and everyone's happy. And he has back then already built that as an active check, and then we built it into an MKP, built a nice little GRI around it, so it's easy to configure. And then once we got thinking about it, we were like, wait, this is maybe something that we can build on. And then we started thinking about further use cases. So we had another customer, and he was saying, okay, but if I already set the ESXi host into downtime, why do I have to then manually set other services into downtime that Checkmk might be able to set into downtime for me? And in their case, they had a network team that was very diligent on naming ports. So it was very easy for them to say, I have this ESXi host, and then I have switch ports that have interfaces that are named ESXi 01, if the host is named the same. And they were asking, couldn't we set them into downtime as well? And we're like, yes, sure, why not? And then we extended this. So this is a use case that we're currently currently being to use. And then we looked further, because usually every ESXi host is a physical host that has a management board. And the management board might have to be set into downtime as well. And then I integrated that. And we integrated that use case as well. And then we had more customers coming along that were saying, yeah, if I have a web application and that web application is load balanced, I would like to have the load balancer being set into downtime if the web application is going into scheduled maintenance as well, so that I don't have to think about all these dependencies every time that I do some work in my environment. And this whole thing grew with more key customers having more and more ideas, that we have an automatic dependency and a manual selection of dependencies that you can use for specific downtimes. And we're also going to extend it. I think it's probably within the next few weeks, so you can already use it, but these things will come later, that we don't just react on manual downtimes that someone set, but if you want to, you can then also use host state, because maybe you want to suppress notifications on depending hosts and services, even if it wasn't a scheduled downtime, because the consequence or the dependency is still existing in the same way. So it would make sense to also set out automated downtimes based on the host state or the service state that we're observing within Checkmk. And then once you're doing that, it's quite an easy step to say, okay, then if we can use any service state, we can also use a service state of a complex BI aggregation to, for example, say that, okay, if my NTP servers within my environment have a problem, then it's probably not a good idea to have every NTP date service or NTP time service on all my Linux hosts complain about it half an hour later because they can't reach their NTP service anymore. So things like that we will be able to do in the future as well. So probably within the next few weeks.
Oh yes, here we see a few screenshots of the plugin in action. So the first screenshot is just a service summary. Here we see the plugin is currently not active and it had found one dependencies. And the second screenshot is the service details. So if we click on the service summary, we go to the details page. We see a detailed list of the hosts and services which will create downtimes for. And also some statistics on the last run. So in this case, it has not added or removed any downtimes. And also some info on caching, which we'll cover a bit later. And if the plugin creates downtimes, it will look like in the third screenshot. So in the downtime comment, we see an ID, which is used by the plugin to identify its own downtimes again for deletion or removal. And also some info for us, the user, so we can see which rule, which instance of the plugin has created this downtime. So in this case, a rule called overall standby check bound to a host called VME102. But before we get to that, we have to do some configuration. So if you go to setup, search for automated downtime, and create a rule there, you get a screenshot like this. And the configuration consists of 5 parts. So the first part is, of course, the name of the service. So with any other active check, choose what you like. Then we have to define the criteria, so which host services we want to observe. And the third part then is the host and services we want to set a downtime for. So what we want to do if we find something in the second part. And then the fourth part is how long do we want to set a downtime. So this means how often the plugin has to renew the downtime, which also adds a little bit load to the system. But that acts also as fail-safe. So if for some reason the plugin gets disabled, the downtime will automatically expire after this time. And finally, the fifth part is how to connect to the API. So we have to define an automation user with sufficient rights. And if we are working in a distributed setup, we have to also define some options on how to connect to the central side. Yes. With the dependency detection, we have different modes available. One is the fully automated mode. This mode searches for hosts and services which contains the name of the host the plugin is bound to. So if, for example, if we bind the plugin to a host called ESXi, it will include hosts called ESXi1-ILO or services which are like called network interface ESXi1. It also includes children hosts defined via parent-child relationship feature, and optionally allows you to include further services defined via regular expression. And the downtime can, of course, also be created recursively. So if you configure the plugin on all your hosts, then when you set a downtime on a host called ESXi1, then the plugin running on ESXi1 will set a downtime on ESXi1-ILO, for example. And the plugin running on ESXi1-ILO will then set further downtimes, for example, on network interface called ESXi1-ILO. And of course, we also have a manual selection. There you can define the dependencies for hosts or service downtimes via regular expression. So if you want to just set hosts into downtime, just filling out a host field, or if you want to define service downtimes or dependencies, fill out both fields. And of course, you can set the host regular expression then to a wildcard expression. Sorry. This is also useful for dependencies between databases and applications, for example. And we also have some more use cases in our wiki. Of course, we had some technical challenges while developing this. So especially when I included the support for the distributed setup. This was when Checkmk 2.0 came out. And there was the new REST API, and so hooray. Let's migrate everything from live queries to REST API calls, which also worked very nice in my test and dev environments. But when we rolled it out at the customer side unfortunately came to a halt and we had to revert. So this is because the REST API is much more powerful, but it's also slower than live queries. So you can't just naively convert every live status query call to a REST API call. And then we had to redo our application architecture a bit. And now we have a mix of live status where it is sufficient. And we do REST API where it's needed. And try to do as much as possible in one call and do as few calls as possible. And then we also introduced some caching. This is brought up new problems. So we have to invalidate the cache sometime. And we have built in some features to detect when we have to invalidate a cache. But it's not perfect yet, so it may take up to 60 minutes currently until the plugin detects some changes in your environment.
That's configuration changes, right? Because
yes.
Every live change is detected pretty much immediately, but configuration changes, so if you have new services that could be detected as dependencies,
if you have new hosts and services, or hosts and services gets deleted, but it is not as bad as new hosts and services.
Okay. Yeah, so how can you get your hand on it? It's been on Checkmk Exchange since Monday. It's called Automated Downtimes. It's also on GitHub, so if you want to fiddle with it and think of other dependency logics that you want to include, feel free to extend it. It's GPL, you can contribute, you can ask Michael to help you with anything you need. The QR code is for the GitHub, so that makes it a little easier. And I don't know if there are any questions, but I put at least a tiny FAQ here as well. It's of course free as every MKP that's ever been published, I think. It works also in the raw edition, so there's no enterprise necessary, and I think some people might have deducted it. It works in distributed sites, so I think we have had customers running it with, was it like at least 10 sites or 8 or something? So it's
like that.
It might not work on some of you guys' environment with like 100 sites. We haven't tested that, but for most people, I think it should cover their use case. Yeah, and if there are any further questions, I can see we have about 4 or 5 minutes left, and otherwise, we're done with this.
We have questions.
Nice. Probably for Michael, though.
No, we have from Robert. And he's asking why you don't use the alert handler for that task.
Because the alert handler is an enterprise feature. and the first customer who requested it was a raw edition user, so yeah.
Yeah, good answer. Then Lars is asking, why don't you use service groups as well for that?
I guess that could work, but then you would still have to set the service group into downtime, and every user who ever uses that or ever wants to set one of these services into downtime would have to think that he has to use a service group instead of using the service. And I guess that could work, but it's more of a user training issue then. But in theory, possible, I guess.
Does it answer your question? Cool. And no, no surprise. Yeah. Question is like, great job, but
That's not a question.
yeah, the question is not there yet. And I think it's like how will you forward that to us so that we implement it, or like what is your vision for this feature in the future?
I mean, it's free to take, and I talked to Niklas yesterday about when do you decide to mainline things, and his answer was yes. So I guess if enough people use it, so if enough people download it and give it like 5-star reviews, then feel free to take it and take over from here.
Yeah.
It's totally fine, but otherwise we'll just keep using it, and whoever wants it can take it.
I think it's like with any of the other things, like what we really try to do is get more of these things into Checkmk, like we do with the Ceph plugin from Robert, like you see with Nutanix and the Redfish stuff. There's also a couple of things with Cisco Meraki we still also want to do. So if there's a lot of demand out there, then we take a look into it. We have to always think what is the right implementation on our side, because you have already mentioned there are some things which can lead to issues, yeah, and that's sometimes
it's not without pitfalls, but they're documented on the GitHub as well.
Yeah, but we have to solve them as well then when we put it into the software.
It's true.
And that's like yeah. But yeah, try it out, give it a lot of stars on GitHub. The more traction it has, the more people of you basically give feedback, the better it gets, and then the easier it gets for us to consider this to put it into Checkmk as well. Right, Lars? Okay. So any other question? Then thank you very much. Cool feature.
Thank you.